What are we going to dig into today? What you got?
Okay, so this segment, I'm just kidding. We're not gonna do new segments every time. But today,
I'm
this
holding my.
segment is
Yeah.
called Black People Problems. And so on today's segment of Black People Problems, we're gonna talk about some things that we deal with as Black people, as Black women, that
Mm-hmm.
most other people don't necessarily have to deal with. Or we'll talk about things that we encounter that other people might have like questions about. So today I'm very on theme today. I think it's because I was supposed to have a hair appointment today, but then they canceled on me, so it was fine.
Oh no.
Anyway, but it has to do with hair.
Okay.
Okay, so people of God, I know that it's very well known that Black women don't like to get their hair wet, but I don't think that people know why. Like, I don't think that people who aren't
Mm.
Black know why, or who don't deal with curly, coily to kinky
Textured
texture
hair.
of hair understand why.
Yeah.
They just think like it's funny,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of
Mm-hmm.
like crack jokes and like laugh at us about it, but they don't actually know
Mm-hmm.
like why it's happening. So, all right, people,
Yeah.
let me show you. When our hair, say we go into work one day and we have our hair straight, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work goes into that. I'm not gonna get into all that, but we have our hair straight.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when our hair gets wet is like, I feel like with some people, when they get in the water and their hair gets wet, it just gets like super straight, right?
Yeah.
Ours does the opposite. Ours
Mm-hmm.
goes link, 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 right? Which is beautiful. But if you're not
Yeah.
expecting it on that day, this takes a lot more maintenance
Yeah.
than having your hair straight. So when
Yeah.
you have your hair done and you have like a meeting or something that you know you have to be presentable, and in society presentable is straight, in many ways. Um um and then it's like storm cloud, thunderstorming, rain. You forgot your umbrella, you didn't check the weather. And you have nothing in the car to cover yourself, and you're running. And it's just like, oh my, like, is this gonna like, oh my gosh. So here's, I just want to show this shrinkage, everyone.
Mm-hmm. There it is. There it is. So shrinkage is just that. It is your hair when it is in its curly state, being a completely different length than it is in its straightened state. And there are multiple ways like to straighten your hair. Some women straighten their hair with textured hair. It takes a perm. Other folks just do like a flat iron. Regardless, there is heat, and if you're getting someone to do it for you, a lot of money and time that goes into it.
Yeah.
And when your hair alters when you didn't plan for it to be altered, that's where the problem comes in.
Right.
That's where the issue
That's
is.
what
And
is
so
happening. Okay? So it's not like, oh my gosh, my hair is going to be ruined. It's like, no, my hair is going to be in a different state than I expected it to
yeah,
be. And I'm not going to be able to get it back because the tools that require to get it back to where it was is at the
or at
house.
home. Yeah, and I also sometimes I just don't feel like it.
Right.
And it's crazy because I think at the beginning, Black women were in this chapter of since the beginning of time doing whatever we want with our hair.
Yeah.
But Black people in the context of Western society, it's been okay, I need to become quote unquote presentable, like Nicole said. And for a lot of years, that was having straight hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to, there have been multiple chapters of the natural hair movement where it's like, I'm going to throw it up and wear it as is. Froze also take a lot of time and maintenance. Like everything we do, it takes time and maintenance. And then now we're in this stage of autonomy and doing whatever the heck you want with your hair, whether that's sew in, straighten, braids, natural fro, if you're shaving it bald, wigs, like all of that.
Yeah.
There is one offshoot of that that's like, yes, we're doing what we want. And then there's another offshoot of that where I saw on Instagram recently a person talking about and talking to herself, but also just us specifically as Black women. She had her hair natural, pretty much untouched. And it wasn't like perfect, juicy curls like Nicole has right now. It wasn't like a braided down look. It was just what it was for that day. And she was repeating to herself, my hair is done. This is my hair as it grows out of my head. My hair is done. I don't want to add anything to it. I don't want to put a scarf on it. This is my hair. and my hair is done.
Yeah.
And that's something that even I'm learning myself as I look at myself waking up in the morning, or if I don't really have time, or if I'm not going anywhere, I'm just wearing my hair as is.
Mm-hmm.
If I need to leave the house, there is this instinct to be like, oh, I need to do something, or oh, I need to throw something on, or oh, I need to put on a baseball cap.
Yeah.
And I need to do better at like, no, my hair is done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And when I think about getting my hair wet just a couple of days ago, I was at a city about an hour away from where I live now. And I was there for the full day. So I was out and about.
Mm.
And it was a kind of gloomy, cloudy, twilighty type of day. And so I was going to bookstores and driving around and walking around a little bit. And at the beginning of the day, my hair looked a certain way. And I had a twist out that day. And at the end, it was the same style, but much more voluminous and had less definition, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like the way that the static on the TV sounds. Young kids ain't gonna know what static on the TV is. But the way that sounds, that's how my hair looked. It was beautiful and I got lots of compliments on it. It was just not what I signed up for that day.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how big my hair had gotten until I stepped into my car, I sat in my car, and I felt some like tension at the top of my head. It was my hair touching the roof of my car. And that's how big it had gotten. I
Wow.
was like, what is that? It was my hair. And so I was like, okay, I still have a lot of growing to do. I've come a long way, but I still have a lot of growing to do when it comes to, even now, the natural hair look. There is like a presentable version of that now,
Mm-hmm.
which literally just comes down to texture. Like this
Literally.
presentable look, I'll never be able to achieve because that's just not what my hair does.
Mm.
So what are some experiences have you had recently with your hair
Oh
when it comes to like relearning stuff?
my gosh. I still struggle with like okay, so when I first met my husband, I was straightening my hair a lot. I was straightening my hair a
Mm-hmm.
lot because I felt like that's what I needed to look like at the stage that I was in on stage. Um,
Yeah.
and he told me that he liked my hair like this more than anything else. And I was like, yeah, okay. And he's like, no, really. And so I legit, and like, it didn't matter because you know how we are with our moms. It was just like, mom, and your mom was like, oh, your hair is beautiful. You should wear it like that. I'm like, mom, no, I should not.
Right. I didn't want to listen, dog.
You
Nah.
listen. And then Michael said something, and all of a sudden, oh, now you want to wear your hair
Yeah. Now what
natural.
says it.
But that's how it
Yeah.
was for me. Is like I was like,
Mm.
okay, let me try to figure out how to work with my hair. And
Mm.
so gradually I became more comfortable with it. It's a whole new journey having to do this postpartum. Because for
Mm.
like 2 months, I would say 2 months, I was dealing with hair shedding, and my
Mm.
hair's already fine. And my
Mhm.
edges were going even more back.
Yeah.
It has since gotten so much better. My hair is so much healthier.
Mhm.
But yeah, I still feel like for some reason, if I wear my hair out like this, like completely out, no
Mhm.
hair tie, nothing, that it only looks good if I have makeup on.
Really?
Like
Wow.
I won't wear it like this if I don't have any makeup on.
That's so crazy how these beauty standards still have us in a chokehold,
Isn't that
man.
weird?
Like,
I don't
for
know.
me, and it's insane because for me, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's beautiful either way. But when it's you, it's just a whole different ball
Mm-hmm.
game. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And like, for me, it is when I wear my hair like that, I have to have earrings on.
Yeah,
I have to
same.
have hoop earrings on because it completes the look.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, without it, it's like quote unquote like, oh, maybe I want to be perceived as unkempt or like blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? That's the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I feel like both of us get compliments on our hair when it's in its most natural state, but why are there still these things that we still deal with?
I
Like,
don't know, man.
and sometimes it's immersion therapy.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's gonna take me forgetting my earrings, or you just being like, I got to take baby boy somewhere in 5 minutes.
Facts.
It's gonna be.
Yeah.
And realizing that, like, one, the best piece of advice I got when I talk about my social anxiety is like, nobody cares about you that much.
I'm
No,
done.
literally nobody cares. We're all fighting for our lives out here. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Um, and two, like, it's really, we feel it the most intensely inside of ourselves. It's never really like an
Yeah.
outside looking in.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you next week. I'm gonna ask you as your homework is to go out once with your hair like this.
Here's the thing though.
With no makeup.
I live in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. So this humidity, Well, not yet. It's not ice cream yet.
Listen,
This summer, bring
it's
give me
gonna do what it's gonna
a couple
do.
months. Uh, yeah, child, look. And
It's gonna
lime,
do what it's
and
gonna
the
do.
goal is to continue to wear it out like this. I was supposed to have a appointment today, because I
Mhm,
need a significant trim. Like I can see when I can
mhm.
see my split ends in its curly
It's
state,
time.
it's time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when I put a
Yeah.
product in, I can just I can tell. So I honestly feel like a
Mm,
good inch probably has to
yeah. It'll be much healthier for it anyway, you
right.
know?
So yeah, I just need to get back to it, and I'm using all of the things. And one other thing that I've had to learn um
Mhm.
is to not touch my hair so much. So you go from
Mm,
straightening your hair all the time, and then I went to wearing my hair natural. Um but even that natural is still with a curling putty or a curling gel
yep.
to keep
Yep.
the texture, to keep it
Yeah,
looking like
there's
it
still
does when it's
stuff.
wet, right? So
Yeah.
this is, if I didn't put product in it, it would still be curly, but it would be a little bit looser, and
Mhm.
not as defined, right? So
Mm,
even
mhm.
natural isn't natural. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went from that to doing my hair natural, but I was still doing a lot of putting my hands in my hair and tugging
Yeah.
with my hands in here. And I remember, I had to think back because I was like, when I was a kid, my hair was, if it was in pigtails, I could literally hold it out like this.
But you had very long, fine, dark hair,
Yeah.
always.
And so I was
Always.
like, what happened? Like, I never
Yeah.
got a haircut, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden my hair's here. Like, what happened?
Mm.
And I think it was after that time I spent in New York. And I had a lot of things happening with manipulation of my hair every day,
Mm.
several
Yeah.
days a week,
Multiple times a day
multiple times a
sometimes,
day.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that it started to fall out on me. And so I had to think.
Mm.
I was like, okay, so when I was younger, I wasn't using the peppermint castor oil scalp
Yeah.
treatments, and I wasn't, you know, doing all this curling putty stuff in my hair. What was it? What were? And so
Mhm.
I called my mom. I did. I called my mom,
Mm.
and I was like, "Mom, like what did you do with my hair when I was younger? Like what was it?" And it was just like grease. I don't know if y'all remember that grease. Y'all
Mm.
remember that grease
Yeah.
on the scalp? And some there's, people who
Yes.
say no to grease. Some people who are like, there's nothing wrong with it, whatever.
Yeah.
But it literally it came down to keep your hands out of your hair.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so over this pregnancy has forced me, because I haven't had time, to
Yeah.
not be in my hair so much. And it's
Mm.
literally the
Mhm.
healthiest it's been in a long time, because
Yeah.
I wasn't constantly trying to make sure that the texture stayed like this, and having to re-wet it every day and put the curling product in it every
Mm.
day, which it's just, and then diffusing it so that the curl pattern
Mhm.
stays the way it's supposed to. It's just like, the less manipulation, the better, period. Which is why you see a
Yeah.
lot of black women in braids or twists, because it's literally called a protective style. So that we're not having
Yeah.
to constantly have our hands in our hair, and our hair is
Mhm.
growing
Mhm. In peace.
in peace without us being in it all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I'm still learning to deal with it, to, um, you know, learn to how to cope with it being the way that it is. Um, And yeah, it's always a case of like everybody wants the hair that they don't have. And
Mhm.
so like you
No.
gotta learn to embrace what grows out of your head.
That's so real. Like I'm in the DMs of conversing with someone who actually I don't think I ever like physically talked to her in person, but we know each other. We went to the same college and
Yeah.
ended up following each other. Um, I posted something about being a curly girl, and when people are like, "Why don't you brush it?" And it's like, no, we don't brush it, not the way you think. And she was talking about, man, like I know that everybody says this, but I wish I had your hair. And I was like, sometimes I wish I had your hair because I was like, if I could, for me, going to the gym and staying active, I'd love to be able to whip
Yeah.
just a bunch of straight, thick hair into a ponytail and go about my day.
Mm.
That's something that I would love to do. And she's like, well, I would love to not look like this all the time. I can't do anything when I curl my hair. By the time I get to my destination, my
Yeah.
curls are gone. It's like, what did I do that he damaged to my hair for?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's always going to be a learning journey
For sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
And you're not alone in doing it. Your internet sisters are also trying. You're trying to keep your hairs out of your hair. I'm trying to put my hands in my hair more.
Mm.
I'm at any point I'm this close to locks.
I know
Like in
that's
the
right.
pandemic, I'm for real. There's nothing wrong with locks. It's not my journey, but I love seeing them. There's so much you
Yeah.
can do with locks.
Yeah.
But in the pandemic, when nobody was open, I was just like, okay, it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And like I had to really do better at putting my hands in my hair and not just leaving it alone. Like I would make sure it was clean,
Yeah.
and then that was it. I was just charging the rest of it because
Yeah.
I was like, okay. It was right after I decided to go natural that the
Mm.
pandemic hit, so I was like, great, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Um, oh my god.
Yeah.
Speaking of that period, though, I also want to talk about another Black people problem.
Okay.
Um, so I have until now worked in and studied in predominantly white spaces.
Mhm.
So when that is the case, I'll just say it like Black folks across the diaspora, when we dress up, we dress up.
Mhm.
When we take care of our bodies, we take care of our bodies in terms of like moisturizing and the what we consider to be dressed up. We don't play around with how we are perceived and how we are when we walk out of our homes.
Mm.
And so when I'm in predominantly white spaces, there'll be times where I'm like, look, I'm gonna put on what I got and do my best. And maybe my elbows aren't as moisturized as they need to be,
I'm
but
done.
nobody's gonna be in the room to identify that. And then when that
Next.
happens and you have to pivot to all Black spaces, the anxiety in my body of like, okay, my brows need to be right, my hair needs to be
Mm.
right, my fit needs to be right, is like a lot. And
Mm.
so on one thing, it's like I love that we hold ourselves to such a high standard. That's what one of the many things that makes us so special. But it's also like the stress of pivoting into those Black spaces is like, okay, are my knees moisturized? Do I look okay? Do I know all the songs and references that I need to know? Like there is this stress that comes with that pivot. So have you experienced that before? Or
Yes.
have you experienced not being on point and there are more Black people at the function than you expect and you're like, dang.
I'm done. Okay, so you know me. I
Mm,
tend to be more overdressed than
mhm.
90% of the people in the room.
Yeah.
Which is annoying. Especially in Florida. They don't care down here. Okay, anyway. Um
Mm,
so it's mainly for me is I have to be I have to feel like I have to overcompensate to make people feel comfortable around me. Because I think that
mm,
people sometimes assume that I think I'm better than them.
mhm, mhm.
Whether it's
Because of how you carry
because of how
yourself.
current,
Yeah.
but it's also because of like colorism. And like I am a
Yeah.
brown
That's real.
skin woman and my hair texture
Mhm.
is more coily than it is kinky. Um
Mhm.
and I married outside of my race, which is anyway.
Mhm.
So it's
A
like,
whole other podcast episode.
honey,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So it's just like I feel like in those spaces I have to almost like prove that I'm like down.
I'm one of you, I promise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what is that? It's like we want to tell ourselves that we are um
A multitude of things. We're not a monolith.
yes, we are
Yeah.
so versatile even within ourselves.
Mhm.
But if that person doesn't fit the mold, it's like, wait, I thought there was no
It's
mold.
crazy.
Like, which one is
Yeah.
it? Choose lane,
Yeah.
choose lane.
Yeah. For
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
For real.
So that's the thing for me.
Uh yeah, it's interesting. And it's difficult because then if you go on that rant,
Yeah,
I don't want to sound like a hotep. Like, and
I
I don't
got
want to sound like I'm trying to overly explain who I am because I shouldn't have
you. Right.
to at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a dangerous game to play, but it is a very real thing that happens. And I wonder, I feel like most of us must feel this way,
Yeah.
but we don't
Don't
really talk
talk about it.
about it enough. Like there is no such thing as the blackest person. There's
No.
just not. Like you can go to HBCU and live in Atlanta and have steeped history and who you are and all that. Like there is no such thing as like the
You know the
boss
tribe,
level.
the Yoruba, that's
Yeah,
your
like
thing, bro.
that's not a thing. So like what are we even doing here?
Mm,
Um but yeah, no, that's a real thing. We deal with it on the day to day. If you deal with it, you're not by yourself.
no.
But the fun part about that is being Black is dope.
Heck yeah. Everybody want
And
to
there
be
are
us until it's
more.
time to be us.
Everybody want to be it until it's time to get real. But no, it's my favorite part of myself it is something that I love to share with others when I have the capacity to. You
Yeah.
know, things that are unique to our culture. I'm excited to raise up a bicultural, multilingual family, which is going to be really exciting. So yeah, shout out to Black folks. We love you.
I'm
It's not Black History Month, but it's Black History Month every day.
every
So
day,
happy March.
and you get an extra day of February. Guess what? You get an extra day of.
Oh God.